So let's get right into it. I want you to imagine for a second that you're about to lose the single most important person in your life. What would you ask them in those final moments? Well, that's exactly the setting for the Uddhava Gita. This is the last and maybe the most profound teaching given by Krishna to his best friend Uddhava, right before his time on earth is up. It's truly one of the great dialogues on wisdom, detachment, and what it really means to be free. And it all kicks off with a feeling that I think we all know way too well. Uddhava, who is basically standing in for all of us here, is just overwhelmed. He says his mind is bewildered, it's just full of doubt. You see, he's so attached to Krishna being physically there that he just can't imagine a world without him. And that fear, that very human fear, sets the stage for a lesson that's absolutely timeless. All right, so here's how we're going to walk through Krishna's guidance. First, we'll look at Uddhava's super urgent question. Then we'll dive into this pretty wild idea that the world is an illusion. After that, we'll learn some wisdom from some, let's just say, very unexpected teachers. Here's some incredible stories about detachment. And finally, lay out the actual path to true freedom. So the central conflict here is just so deeply human. Krishna tells Uddhava, look, once I'm gone, you shouldn't stay here on earth. He's about to leave, and Uddhava is frankly panicking. He's desperate. He needs to know how to navigate this world of constant change and loss without his guide. It's really a question of, how do you find an anchor in a stormy sea? And the contrast on this slide is, wow, it's really striking. On one side, you've got Uddhava. He's trapped by his attachments. He's scared, he's confused. And on the other side is Krishna's first instruction, and it is a complete 180-degree shift in perspective. He doesn't offer some simple, cheap comfort, no. He says, give it all up. Give up the attachment, fix your mind on what's eternal, and see the world for what it really is, temporary. But to really get what that instruction means, you have to grasp Krishna's core philosophy. And this is the foundation for everything else that's coming. It's the idea that the world we see, it's an illusion. The key concept we're talking about here is Maya. The easiest way to think about it is like a lens that distorts our perception of everything. It's this cosmic illusion that convinces us that this temporary material world, with all its ups and downs, its pains and pleasures, is the only thing that's real. And that's what keeps us attached, and ultimately, it's what keeps us suffering. Krishna is so direct about this. He basically says, everything you perceive with your senses, everything that feels so solid and so real, it's an illusion. It's all just a temporary show. The real you, the soul, is eternal and is totally unaffected by any of it. Getting this, really getting it, is the very first step to breaking free. Okay, so if the world is an illusion, then how are we supposed to live in it? Well, Krishna answers this by telling this incredible story of a wise sage, an Avadhuta, who learned the science of the self not from ancient texts, but from the world all around him. He found 24 gurus. And get this, they weren't people. They were elements of nature. They were animals. They were even his own experiences. This just goes to show you that wisdom is literally everywhere if you just know how to look. And what's so amazing is just how practical these lessons are for today. From the earth, he learned stability, how to stay tolerant and steady even when the world is pushing you around. From the python, he learned to fight against our crazy culture of always striving for more and just be content with what comes your way. The honeybee, well, that taught him how to deal with information overload, right? Take the good stuff, the essence, from everywhere without getting tangled up. And a child showed him the beauty of just living free from ego and anxiety. Every single one is a powerful lesson in detachment. Now, to make this whole idea of detachment even more real, Krishna shares a bunch of really powerful stories, parables that show both the dangers of attachment and the incredible freedom that comes from letting go. First up is this story of two pigeons. They were totally wrapped up in their family, their nest, their eggs, their baby birds. Their hearts were so tied up in affection that when a hunter trapped their children and then their mother, the father was just so overcome with grief that he basically walked right into the net himself. It's this incredibly stark warning that even beautiful attachments can lead to total disaster. But then, on the flip side, you have the story of Pingala. She was a prostitute, waiting anxiously one night for a customer. But as the hours dragged on and nobody came, her hope just curdled into despair. And in that absolute rock-bottom moment, something amazing happened. She had this profound realization, a total aha moment. She saw that her hope, her desire for something external, was the source of all her misery. And by just giving up on that desire, she found this incredible peace and happiness that was already inside her. Her greatest disappointment literally became her greatest liberation. And there's another story about the Avansi Brahmana. He was a rich miser who lost everything, and then he was mocked and abused by everyone around him. And yet, he found peace. How? Because he realized that other people, or his fate, or his karma, none of that was the real cause of his suffering. It was his own mind's reaction to it all. He finally understood that the mind, and the mind alone, is what creates our happiness and our distress. So, after all these stories and all this philosophy, Krishna brings it all home. He lays out the practical steps for Uddhava, and really for all of us, to actually live a liberated life. And it's a pretty clear 4-step process. First, you've got to control the mind, recognizing it's the engine driving your whole experience. Second, you sharpen your intelligence with knowledge, so you can tell the difference between what's real and eternal, the soul, and what's temporary, the body. Third, you use that sharp intelligence like an axe to just cut the knot of the false ego, that little voice that says, I am this body. And finally, you realize your connection to the Supreme Self. So what's the result? What does this life actually look like? Well, a liberated person moves through the world kind of like a child. They're spontaneous, they're free, they aren't swayed by what people say, good or bad. They're just steady, satisfied. And they see that same eternal spirit in everybody. They're not thrown around by the waves of happiness and sadness anymore because they're anchored in something much, much deeper. At the end of the day, the Uddhava Gita leaves us with this incredibly powerful idea. The universe is our guru. The path to freedom isn't about escaping the world. It's about learning to see it clearly. So it asks us to look at our own lives, our challenges, our relationships, even our biggest disappointments, and to ask ourselves a pretty simple question. What has the world been trying to teach you?